Today, we will be building a SwiftUI to-do list app with Firebase login and Firestore. This is the actual app we'll be creating. The user is able to log in using their credentials, test@test.com. The password is test1234. Click on sign in. So as you can see, there are a few to-dos that the user needs to complete. We can add a new to-do. Click on the plus sign, add the to-do subject, collect relative from airport, assign a date, say 27th of August, click on save. As you can see, the to-do has been saved. And I'll also show you the to-do within the Firestore database. And as you can see, if we navigate to Firebase, we can see all the to-dos for the logged in user. So if I click on this document here, for this user, you can see the to-dos. And this is the new to-do that we just submitted a few minutes ago, collect relative from the airport. We can also delete the to-dos from the Firestore database by swiping. So if we wanted to delete one of the to-dos, we just swipe and click on delete, and then that record will also be removed from Firestore. And we can update the to-do as well. If you want to set one of the to-dos to complete, it's code is playing up. So go to delete mode. Let me just stop the simulator, try it again. I'll select the record again, the one that we want to update. Okay, so at the moment, the status for the wash the car to do is pending. If I want to, I can update it to done, and click on save. As you can see, it's now been updated to done, so that to-do is done. We can also search or filter the to-dos. If I type in W, it will filter on all the to-dos that contains the letter W, such as wash the car and mow the lawn. So I don't know what happened there, so let's go. So this is the app that we'll be creating today. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials. We will continue with the start streaming function. The purpose of the start streaming function is to enable the information within Firebase to be listened to remotely so that the change can be pulled down asynchronously into the app. So type the following: private func start streaming. And that function will begin a live stream of to-dos from the back end for the current user that's logged in. Guard let UID equals UID. So that should be auth.uid, else return. So what that line does, there must be a logged in user. If there's not a logged in user, that means we have to return from the function. You just exit that function. Just make sure that the function name is spelled correctly. Start streaming. There should be an A there. Task. The purpose of using the task is to asynchronously receive the to-dos whenever anything changes within the backend. So if we update a to-do from pending to completed, or from completed to uncompleted, those changes will be reflected in the backend. So that function would, for example, display the updated list of to-dos here when anything changes in the backend. On line 38, it should be items. Next function we need to create is a refresh. And the purpose of the refresh function is to explicitly fetch all the to-dos. This can be useful when having a feature on the application such as pull to refresh or initial load. auth.uid equals auth.uid. If the user cannot be retrieved, we just exit the function, like what we've done in the previous function. CRUD was spelled incorrectly. I'll just correct that now. Is loading is equal to true. Defer is loading equals to false. The purpose of the defer keyword, it makes sure that that line or that keyword will be executed. To-dos equals try await service dot fetch all. So we retrieve all the to-dos for the logged in user. So if Fred is a user and if Fred was logged in, the application would retrieve all of Fred's to-dos and wouldn't retrieve Mary's to-dos because they're two different users. Self.error equals error, just in case there's an issue with the application. We display an error on the app, so the user will know what to do next. The next function we need to add to our view model is add, and the purpose of add is to enable the user to add a new to-do to Firebase. The parameters include subject, due at, which is the due date, and the status that signifies if the to-do has been completed or not, or if it's pending or cancelled, for example, as seen within this slide, in the screenshot, which is here. You see, yeah, there's pending there. So the status should be to-do status that we created in the previous tutorial. That's the data type, async, guard let UID equals UID. Always type in UID, it should be author.uid, else return for whatever reason. If the user cannot be fetched, we just return from the function. On line 59, that should be capital S for string. Do try await. That should be try await. Service create. So we're just passing our parameters into the create function of the service object. We're passing our UID, which is the user's unique identifier, and the subject of the to-do, and the due at, which is the due date, and the status of the to-do, if it's completed or pending. As we done earlier, we have to capture our errors. Self.error equals to error.localize description. We also need to create a function to enable the user to update their to-do. And this feature can be seen, I think it's, don't know if I've got a screenshot for that one. Anyway, it allows the user to update their to-do. So to update their to-do, the function needs to take a to-do object, which is to-do, and then we need to check to make sure that the object contains a valid UID, else we need to exit this function. As we've done before, similar code, try await, service.update to do, so we pass in our UID, and we pass in our to do, that we want to update, and then we attempt to capture any errors like what we've done previously on this line. I'll just copy and paste it here. And the next function we need to create is the delete function to enable the user to delete a to-do as seen in this screenshot. The user can delete a to-do from the list by swiping. Func delete at offset index set async. So the index set gets the index of the swipe from the list, such as the swiping from this list would be at position 1, because we all know that indexes within an array start from 0. So wash the car would be 0, the swiping here would be 1. And now we implement the rest of our function. As you can see, this view model is focused on CRUD, create, read, update and delete, for manipulating the database. If there's not a user, we just exit the function. Now we go through each of the indexes in the offsets. If let ID is equal to I just need to pause it for a minute. We need to create a new function called not a function, maybe it can be done another way. To implement the filters to-dos, we will use a computed property. This filtered property will return an array of to-dos. So we implement the rest of that property afterwards. Now let's just return to lines 85. Now we can call our new property, which is called filter to-dos, and then pass in our ID. And the next thing we can do is try to delete a record from Firebase. Since we have the record ID, we can attempt to remove the records from the app. Handle any errors in our catch. Self.error equals error.localize description. And now we just complete our filter to-dos, computer property. Type the following: guard not query dot trim characters in dot white spaces and new lines is empty. So what we're doing there, we're removing any white spaces and any empty spaces. From our query, and then the next thing to do is to return an array of to-dos. Let q equals query dot lowercase and then the next thing we need to do is to filter our to-dos. Each to-do contains a subject which will be converted to lowercase. Once it contains our search criteria, and also we want to retrieve the status from the to-do, and we convert that to lowercase as well, but it has to match our criteria, our query, and then the actual result will be returned to the calling routine. The next file we need to create is our to-do editor's view. The purpose of our to-do editor's view is to enable the user to perform the actual edits of the to-do using the actual UI or GUI. I think there's a screenshot here somewhere. But it's a little bit similar to this. When the user clicks on a to-do, they're allowed to edit that to-do. So let's create the new file, SwiftUI file, name the file to-do editor view. We need to add a few properties or variables: existing, to-do, which is optional, and the reason why this is optional, if we're editing, we pass in a existing to-do, but if we're creating a new to-do from scratch, it will be new. That's why we have to have the question mark there for optional. var on save string date to-do status void. And that's our callback function. that we need to create. Purpose of the callback function is to send the subject, date and status back to the parent view, which is the main view of the application. At environment, dismiss, private var dismiss. That will enable the user to dismiss the screen when finished. We also need to create a few state properties for the form fields. At state, private var subject, string, at state, private var duet, date, and another at state, private var status, to do status. And we also need to create our initializer. Don't think we need all of these though. Let me just do it manually. So the parameters that's needed include existing to do, which is optional, on save, at escaping, where we pass in our parameters, string date, and to do status, and then we just return void. Self.existing equals existing. Self.onSave equals onSave. So what we're doing there, we store the callback, and we also keep a reference to the to-do being edited. Subject equals state, initial value, existing, subject. If it's empty, we just put 2 commas there. So that the state for the subject will be filled with a blank string. And then we do the same thing for duet and status. Duet. So if it's blank, we just include today's date as the default, and your status, we do something similar as well. If it's blank, we just assign it to pending. In next week's tutorial, we will continue to implement the rest of the To-Do Editor's view. Don't forget to subscribe for more Swift and SwiftUI tutorials.